morning, dear people of the internet, and welcome to the bed guides of the fiber arts community. I don't know who these people are yet. The purpose of this video is to find out who they are. I found some posts on Reddit, on the Am I the Jerk kind of Reddit, of some fiber artists in a pickle with some non-fiber artists. So we'll be reading those and then judge them. And of course, we'll also learn how to avoid getting into these pickles ourselves, because of course, that's what we do here. Before we get started though, I have this very delusional plan of this channel helping me through college and beyond, and you can luckily help me with that for free by subscribing and watching my videos if you like them. So thank you for that. Now let's get started. The first post we'll read is called Am I the A-hole for asking my girlfriend to stop knitting so much? My 30M girlfriend 27F is really into knitting and has been long before we started dating 3 months ago. At first it didn't bother me and I thought it was cool she had a hobby, but then I realized just how much she does it. Granted, she's not pulling out the knitting hook. Okay, so knitting hooks are not a thing. They do not exist. You have knitting needles, like these, pointy sticks, and you have crochet hooks. They look like these, with a little hook at the end, but you don't have a knitting hook. This is used to crochet, and this is used to knit, typically speaking. You can use a crochet hook to knit sometimes by casting on stitches or by fixing a dropped stitch, but it's not for the entire project. You could, but that would be weird and not comfortable, and nobody really does that. I have heard of the term crochet needle, which kind of makes sense because in a lot of Western European languages it literally translates to crochet needle, like in my native language Dutch. This is called a haaknaald, haak meaning crochet, and naald meaning needle, so making this a crochet needle. Sometimes people with a background in these languages confuse the languages and call this a crochet needle, which is totally fine. But it is technically a crochet hook in English, and this is a knitting needle. There's no confusion there. Nobody ever calls this a hook in any language that I have ever heard of. So the term knitting hook is a mix-up that cannot really be a mistake if you ever used your listening ears. I feel like he does not really show interest in his girlfriend's hobby, truly, and is just not listening, and that's my assumption, and therefore he gets negative points. Granted, she's not pulling out a knitting hook at dinner or anything, but it seems anytime we're watching TV together or just hanging out at her place, she's always working on some project. She said she needs to keep her hands busy, and it's like fidgeting for her, but I severely doubt that she can be fully present. You don't have to pay attention when you fidget, and she literally always jokes that she doesn't know how to count. She claimed it's not all the time, but it's definitely more often than not. She argued that she can follow TV show plots just fine, but when I quizzed her on some of the details, she couldn't answer some of the questions, so I think my point stands. Then she said, if it's an important conversation, I obviously put my work down, but I think we have different definitions of what important means. I also told her I would like to be able to cuddle and physically interact with her during TV time. She said we can still cuddle, but it's literally not the same. I want her to be interested in me, not some pile of yarn. This might be petty, but I think I might feel better about it if she knitted things for me. But it always seems to be bags or clothes for herself or like random squares. She did make a pretty cute toy for my dog though, but that was actually nice. Anyway, I sat her down the other day and told her my perspective, and instead of being willing to compromise, she told me that I'm the one that's not listening to her and essentially calling me an a-hole. She is a great girl and I don't want to lose her over this, but also not sure what to do. Am I the a-hole? Well, yes you are. The guy, let's call him Dave, is indeed not listening to her. From the random squares, I am deriving that this is probably crochet, because granny squares are a crochet thing, and mostly when I'm making random squares, it is granny squares. So anyhow, it just seems like Dave is not listening very well to his girlfriend when she's talking about her craft. It is true that crocheting or knitting sometimes takes up a lot more attention than just fidgeting with a tangle like this, for example. Like, you don't have to do it right for it to not fall apart. And that counting is hard, that is also true. However, it does not always need to be a conscious attention, and you don't always need to be counting when you're doing this. Like, most of the time you don't, depending on what you make, of course. So that's a pretty bad argument about the not paying attention thing. I need to fidget when I'm trying to pay attention to something, and I need this fidget to take up a little bit of my attention for it to work well. Like, I need to balance out what gets my attention, and there need to be multiple sources of it most of the sometimes, not always, for it to work well. So while this thing helps me a lot when I'm walking around at a festival to calm my nerves, it does not help me to pay attention to a show or a lecture, for example. So different situations require different stimuli for my brain, and often knitting and crochet can help me a lot with that. To me, it seems like the real issue here is that Dave craves attention. I also think that he needs to try to figure out what kind of attention he needs, because the real issue is not his girlfriend trying to pay attention to the shows they are watching by crocheting, especially since he implies he would be more okay with it if she were crocheting something for him. And why on earth would you quiz your partner on a TV show? It's not French class. It does not matter that much. Like, if it truly matters that much to you with a specific show, for example, you can talk to them, to your partner, and be like, hey, this show is really important to me because blah blah blah. And then yes, you can ask them to pay more attention. But you don't quiz someone on that. That's so annoying. Like, I binge shows all the time, and half of the time I don't remember half of it because I'm binging them, because I'm watching them so much, and that's totally fine because it helps me in the moment to engage with the story and afterwards to just not think the bad thoughts in my brain. I think it's toxic to quiz someone on a piece of entertainment. I think Dave needs to do some self-reflecting and find a hobby for himself, because this is not healthy. So Dave is the a-hole. I think we should keep a score, and the non-fiber artists have 0 points now, and the fiber artists have 1 point for being reasonable. The next story is called Am I the a-hole for telling my friend her crochet scarf is not worth $150? My friend, F18, is selling crafts and crochet things. She's been complaining that her stuff isn't selling like how she wants it to. That is very fair, because marketing is very hard. She's been making these scarves that are crocheted and have designs on them. The ones she was selling had designs crocheted on them, and I thought it was really neat. I told her I wanted to buy from her. She told me that she would sell it to me for $150. $150 during these times is insane. How can she expect anyone to pay that for a scarf? I told her $150 was way too much and that nobody has that kind of money laying around for a scarf. She got super defensive and told me that I don't understand how much time it takes. Which sure, I'm sure it takes a long time to make, but that doesn't automatically make the scarf worth that. Our friend group is divided on the issue. Some of them think I was being rude, but the others just know I was being honest. Am I the a-hole? It says here that this person knows that it took a long time, but that doesn't make it automatically worth the money the time takes. If I've learned one thing from Uncle Scrooge from Donald Duck, is that time is money. Every hour you work on something that you want to sell is worth the money. And I find that very hard to learn, because I have recently came into the world of freelancing, and asking people for money is hard. But you need to set a price for your time that it takes you to make things or do things, because that is how the economy works. And I don't like it either, but it's how it works and it's how people make money. So actually, yes, time means money nowadays. I'm sorry, but it is true. Let's take a step back. We need to pull out the math here. The first rule of making a scarf is that they take always twice as long as you think they would take. They are long. Scarves are long. I've made plenty of scarves a long while ago. I forgot how long they have taken me, but I think at least over 15 hours. Probably double of that, because again, they take at least double as long as you would think. So let's take the 15 hours here. And again, it's probably more, especially when there are ant designs on them, which sounds really cute, by the way, but that's besides the point. There are no pictures, so I cannot show you. So if you take the 20 hours and pay yourself $15 an hour, which is already not a livable wage, by the way, but that's a whole different problem, you already have double what this person asked. And then you also have extra costs, like you're freelancing, so you need to pay extra insurances, and you need to pay for the materials, and you actually want to make a living wage, which makes it even more expensive. Shows that $150 for this is ridiculously cheap, actually. I wholeheartedly understand if you cannot afford a scarf that is $150. I understand that there are cheaper scarves, there's cheaper ways to make scarves. Crocheted clothes are luxury goods. I'm sorry, but that's the case. They are expensive, and therefore it is hard to market, because they are so expensive to make in time. They are a luxury good. It's okay if you cannot afford that. That doesn't mean that it's not worth that, though. I dare you to tell your local suit tailor, for example, that their work is not worth the thousands of euros or dollars or whatever they ask for a tailored suit. You wouldn't do that either. So the fiber artists get an extra point for being right, and the non-fiber artists still have 0 points. Maybe this is gonna be a pattern for the rest of the video, but 2 people don't make a pattern yet, so we need to read another one. And it's titled, Am I the a-hole for telling my husband I will only make a crocheted sweater for him if he learns the bare minimum crochet? I'm sure there's a few crocheters in this sub that know the immediate sense of annoyance when someone asks, with no regard for the level of skill even basic crochet requires, to have something made for them. My husband never asked, and I only do this as a hobby and never sell or take requests from anyone else anyways. Recently he got a kitten, his first ever kitten, and he asked me to make the kitten a little sweater. I told him no, and when he brought it up again, I told him that if he learned to do a single stitch square in 4" by 4" size, I would make a sweater for the kitten. He told me that was too much effort to learn and that I had it lucky since I've been doing crochet since I was a kid. That doesn't mean that you did not have to learn it, by the way, so that doesn't make any sense, but okay. I don't think it's mean to say no, I just want him to understand I do this for fun and for myself, and that there's a level of skill involved that I want to progress towards. I make rectangles and only rectangles. I make blankets and coasters and pot holders and scarves, but I don't make anything for other people. I do this for fun and for myself. He has his own hobbies too, and I figured it was understood that we don't have to mingle some of our hobbies. I don't really care one way or another if he plays video games or his Pokemon stuff. We do share a few hobbies, like cooking and Minecraft and mixology, that's cute. But the way he was acting after I told him my terms, he has me wondering if I'm being unreasonable. Making a sweater takes a lot of time. Making a sweater for someone else comes with the extra pressure of the expectations of the other person. Making a sweater for your partner comes with the extra pressure of the sweater curse, which means that if you make a sweater for your unmarried partner, now they are married, so the sweater curse should not exist anymore, but anyways, the sweater curse is if you make a sweater for your partner and you're not married yet, you will break up soon. The less spiritual explanation of that is that the reaction of your partner might be underreacting, like they just got a piece of clothing and they don't value your hours and hours and days and weeks of work you put in this sweater. So the sweater curse, I think, is real, but it just depends on how you look at it, I guess. Anyhow, that's all the pressures that comes with making a sweater for somebody else who is also your partner. Again, sweater curse does not exist anymore, but it might be here because they never made a sweater for her husband. And these are all good reasons to not make a sweater for your husband. However, it's not a sweater for the husband, it's a sweater for the cat, which takes off the pressure because the cat will nibble at it anyway at the very least. It takes off the expectations and it takes a lot less time to make a sweater for a cat. Don't take me wrong, I still think it's a valid answer to say no to this request because sometimes you just don't want to do something. Especially if it's something like this, you should do the dishes, but you don't have to make the cat a sweater. The first mistake in this situation was caused by the boyfriend, because the boyfriend asked again. When she said no, he had brought it up again, and you should not bring it up again if someone says no. If you ask me to make a sweater and I say no, then no means no in any situation. So that's the easy answer to this. That's the first mistake in this situation. And I think that answering with, if I am going to do this, you are going to learn the basic crochet as well, is also wrong. I don't think that makes a lot of sense. I feel like she wants her husband to experience that crochet isn't just a quick and easy little thing and that it takes a lot of time and effort, but the world doesn't work like that, sadly. I think it would solve a lot of problems if the world just worked like that. If you experience something, you learn from it and then you take it for the rest of your life with you. But the world doesn't work like that. It's also a kind of unclear and illogical response to me, and it shows a lot of build-up frustrations, I think. There are just healthier ways to solve this. I don't think that OP is an a-hole necessarily. I do think that the husband is sort of half an a-hole for just asking again, and I hope that he won't ask a third time because then he would be an a-hole. I do think that the fiber artist gets half a point here, so it's 2.5 points. Yes, I'm biased by the way. 2.5 points for the fiber artist and still 0 for the non-fiber artist. I'm starting to lose hope for the non-fiber artist, but let's move on. The next post is titled, Am I the a-hole for refusing to accept my mother-in-law's challenge and giving her instructions to learn how to knit? Which sounds exactly the same as the previous situation, by the way, but I've chosen it because I have a different opinion about it, because this went a little bit different and the people were a little bit different in this. I am a knitter and enjoy making all kinds of things, but for the most part I knit things for me or my husband. I don't have the heart to buy nice yarn, a pattern, and put hours into making something for someone just to watch it be treated like crap. I have no say over what others do with the things I give them, so I just don't. That is a very fair point, I think. My mother-in-law says, I have a challenge for you if you're up to it. She pointed at a picture on her phone and said that the challenge for me was to make her a Sophie scarf that would match a dress. I asked her why she's framing it as a challenge when it's just her asking me to knit something for her. She didn't have an answer and just said if I'm up to the challenge I can give it a try. I asked my husband what I should do. He said to just flat out tell her no, but I figured it would be nice to at least meet her halfway. I asked her to send me a picture of the dress and went to my yarn store to get yarn in a color I thought would be good and a pair of needles for my own stash. I got her a Learn to Knit book. The next time I saw her, I gave it all to her and said that here is all the stuff that she would need to make her Sophie scarf, except the pattern she'd need to buy herself. She looked at it like what the heck and said in this pity voice, "Oh, you couldn't figure it out?" I said, nope, I've made myself a few, but I thought it would be better for her to learn how to knit and she would be able to challenge herself. She frowned at it but didn't say anything else to me and just set the yarn aside. She did, however, go to my husband and tell him that all she had done was give me a challenge, but I hadn't even tried. He heard her out, but told her it was ultimately up to me. I have unfortunately seen her posting on Facebook about how she doesn't get my generation and why we have to make everything so difficult. I thought this would be an interesting question to post to you all, so am I the a-hole? First of all, why did the mother-in-law say that this is a challenge? Because that's kind of a weird way to frame this. I think the mother-in-law might be aware of the fact that the poster does not make things for other people, and that she thought that framing it as a challenge somehow would make her do it because it was framed differently. However, the mother-in-law clearly did not think that through, because a challenge means that there is gonna be a chance to win or to lose, because you can win at a challenge or you lose at a challenge. And she was going to be the judge of that. So that only will make the pressure higher and make OP not want to do it, which makes sense. Therefore, I agree with the boyfriend's idea of just saying no. I don't understand this instant obsession of teaching someone to learn how to knit or crochet when you just don't want to do it for them. Like, no is an entire sentence. Also, in this case, you can just say no, and if they keep nagging at you, you say no and don't ask me again. If they keep nagging at you, they are the a-hole, and you don't have to teach them how to knit or crochet because you don't want to teach these people how to knit or crochet. I don't understand why people are doing this, especially when they have not insulted the craft. Like, this mother-in-law person, according to the post, does not have a history of saying how easy it is to knit. So why would you want to learn it? Like, I get it when someone is like, knitting is so easy, it takes only half an hour, it's very easy, you should make this for me. And then teaching them to knit will teach them that it's not easy and not quick at all. I kind of understand that. But forcing someone to learn how to knit because you just don't want to make something for them, and because they framed it kind of weirdly, which is definitely not the right move, but anyhow, I don't understand this. And I also think it lacks a sort of self-respect. It's like saying, oh, it's so easy, you can just do it yourself. You can learn to knit or crochet. I believe that almost everyone can learn that, but some people just don't like doing crafts. Some people just don't have the motor skills for that, or just don't want to learn them and don't want to put the time and effort in. That's totally fine. There are also many other things that other people like to do it that I would absolutely hate to do, and I'm not even intrigued to learn it. And a lot of other people also have that with knitting and crochet, and that's perfectly fine. But when someone asks you to make something that fits with a specific dress, I would imagine that they do respect your craft specifically. You just say, oh, it's easy, here, have the stuff, you can learn it yourself. That's just kind of disrespectful to yourself in a way, I guess. Like, we shouldn't gatekeep, of course, but she didn't ask to be taught how to do this, she asked for the scarf. And again, you can say, no, that's perfectly fine, but this is just disrespecting yourself and your craft. I do think that OP is the a-hole here, because they are just responding in a way that makes no sense, and that was very unprompted. It's not reasonable at all, so the non-fiber artists get 1 point, and that makes the score 2.5 against 1. We have time for one more story, and I'm willing to give the non-yarn people the benefit of the doubt, so this will decide everything. It is called Am I the A-hole for crafting during meetings? So I work in a mainly office setting, and we have a lot of meetings, video conferences, and online training, which is primarily in video format. I've always needed something to do with my hands thanks to ADHD, and if I don't, I cannot focus on things that isn't reading properly, which is ironic because I also have dyslexia. In uni I used to crochet and knit in lectures, same, because it was really helpful, because it helped and no one seemed to have a problem with it. The lecturers actually encouraged it, and when I asked and said as long as it helped me focus, I could do whatever I wanted. So I decided I was going to take it into work with me to see if that would help me focus more in meetings and not get distracted during them. They are very long meetings, going up to 4 hours sometimes, and usually I mentally clock out within the first half hour. Side note, I had brought up in supervision that I had trouble focusing, and my manager was actually the one that recommended I find something to do with my hands and okayed it. It worked. I was able to focus a lot better and be more involved in meetings because I was not drifting away. But recently a colleague came up to me and told me to stop. He said that it was rude and disrespectful towards everyone in the meeting and that our service users whom the meetings are generally about. I tried to explain that it actually helped me in staying on track and remembering more of the information about our service users, but he held his stance firmly. And it's not like I'm not participating at all. I don't need to look down at my knitting or crochet because I've been doing it for so long, and I bring in pieces that are simple and mindless to do. I also will put down to write, type up notes, and if I'm talking. Anyway, my colleague said that he was going to bring this to the higher ups if I continued, even though I had already cleared it with my manager before I started doing so, and it's gotten me a bit worried, so I need your opinions. I just want to preface that the meetings I take part in aren't massive company meetings. Usually there are about 6 to 15 of us, and it's generally group discussions. Also, where I work it's quite relaxed and generally a casual setting. Like, we wear smart casual as well, so it's not super formal. So should I stop? Is what I'm doing disrespectful? More info. To clear up about the service users, they are not in the meetings with us. It's only us professionals in these meetings. We are discussing them and what we are going to do, our plans, but they are not present for them. We work with their mental health and I'm part of a therapy team, so I'm well aware that it could be unprofessional to do so in the presence of service users. Additionally, the people within these meetings are generally people I see every day, so they're not all strangers. Also, I keep the crafting on my lap and the projects are relatively small and in one color, like socks, hats, squares, etc. Not big projects like blankets and sweaters. I have a notebook or laptop on the table, so I'm not taking up a bunch of space on the table and it's generally quite hidden. When in the in-person meetings I crochet, so there's no needles clacking as crochet only uses one hook. The knitting is done when I'm online, as knitting is a bit more of a hassle than crochet is. I don't agree with that, but if that's your experience, that is totally fine. I think both of those would be fine to do in real life meetings. I'm not medicated for my ADHD, but that has a reason. I have trialed a lot. I get bad side effects from medication, even in general, such as extreme drowsiness and nausea, or some of them just don't even work for me. And these side effects mean that I cannot work a full-time job, which I love, so I'd rather be unmedicated and have to deal with it myself than it be ill and not working. Thank you for all the recommendations on other fidgets I could use as well. I will give some of them a try. There's a second edit. It says, thank you for all the responses so far. I will take what's being said into consideration. I'm going to speak with my manager on Monday and ask if he can talk about it at the beginning of the meeting to get input from everyone else. I just want to say quickly to people saying I should just focus and stop being unprofessional by fidgeting in any capacity. ADHD and other disabilities do not work like that. I can't just focus. I can't just grow up. That is not how it works. If you can come up with a way to miraculously make me focus without fidgeting, I'm all ears. Same. It's a disability. It is a diagnosis. It means something. Like, if ADHD was just being lazy and having a hard time focusing, but you can do it and you can learn to do it over time and you grow out of it, it wouldn't be ADHD. I am of the opinion that you can do your work however you want if you can show the results that are desired. Of course, you have to do your work in an ethical way without distracting the people you work with, which OP is trying really hard to do, by the way, and I doubt that they are distracting the other people. They are trying way harder than I ever did in my life to not distract others, granted in class, and nobody ever came up to me that I was distracting them in a way that was really disturbing to them or whatever. I have had to explain to so many people that knitting or crocheting or spinning yarn whilst trying to focus on something really helps me focus instead of taking my focus away. And often I have gotten responses to that, through which it seemed that the people did not really believe me, but they just let it go, I guess. And I'm sure that not everybody works like that, but I work like that, NLP work like that, and that is fine. Fiber arts, as I said before, are my holy grail when it comes to getting myself focused, because they take that little bit of desired attention that something else needs to take for me to concentrate on the thing that I need to focus on. Being medicated, by the way, makes it easier to navigate this, but it doesn't take it away. I still need to do something, just makes it easier to grab my thing and not think about other things and get even more distracted. I'm actually scared of this happening to me because people have so many ideas on how you should behave in order to do your work well. These are not necessarily always things you find in the workplace handbook. You just have to know. They just supposed to be common sense, but to me and a lot of other people, they are not common sense. And it shouldn't matter as much as well, because this is a perfect example of why that doesn't matter and why it should matter that people should do their work in a way that works for them, as long as you get the work done. OP took the best possible route here to make sure that they could accommodate their needs by going to the manager and asking and getting an approval, by the way, from the manager. And I don't think they did anything wrong. They are not the bad guy here, obviously. I sincerely hope that this Monday meeting, everyone went in and shut down this one co-work, and that everyone was like, yeah, it's fine. Why are you even making a point out of this? Because the manager sounds like a great person, and I think that the rest of the people would also be fine with this. You work in therapy. How do you not know that? It kind of shows that maybe this co-worker is not doing a great job himself, because he does not even want to understand this. Sadly, this was the opposite of a redemption arc for the non-yarn people. It's now 3.5 against 1, and the fiber artist won this round. Obviously, this was in no way, shape, or form a professional scientific study, and I am very biased, and I choose the things we were going to read. Well, I did not choose them on who wins or not. It took a while to find stories where, like, the fiber artist and the non-fiber artist were against each other and had some kind of misunderstanding going on, and in that case, I would say that the fiber artists are most likely the most reasonable person, but not always. There might be a connection to the fact that crochet and knitting are seen as crafts done by women to just spend time waiting on their husbands to come home, and not as actually skills in crafts and arts that are a skill and that take years and years to learn, and that have so many different beautiful ways to express yourself and whatever. They're seen as a little womanly thing sometimes still. And that is a problem, but I'm not sure if the reason why the fiber artist won is because of that connection. Who knows? This is again not scientific research, just a little silly video about the Reddit posts. The takeaway is to just take people's words for what they mean and not add anything else to it, and just believe people when they say something and just respect other people. I actually think that would solve a lot of other problems we have in the world as well, but oh well, I guess. Thank you for watching. If you like my little video, please press the wonderful shiny like and subscribe buttons, and then I will see you next time. Ciao!